Welcome back to Better Together, the podcast where we get real about what it takes to build a business that actually makes an impact. Today's guest is someone who's been making waves, reducing waste for over 2 decades. Stacy Savage is a powerhouse in the world of environmental consulting. As the founder and CEO of Zero Waste Strategies, she's helped clients like Dell, AT&T, and the city of Austin turn sustainability into smart business. From advocating for statewide recycling legislation to guiding companies through true zero waste certification, Stacy is proof that doing good for the planet can also be good for growth. In today's conversation, we dig into what it's really like to build a mission-driven business, how she navigated uncertainty, and what it means to lead with purpose in a world that often prioritizes speed over sustainability. So thank you. Let's dive right in. Thank you, Stacy, for being here.
I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. So let's start from the very beginning, okay? What inspired you to first step into the environmental work, and what did those early days look like with building zero waste strategies? What did that look like from behind the scenes?
Well, I was born and raised in Southeast Texas, and a lot of people call it the Golden Triangle. It's the Beaumont-Port Arthur area, but it's also where the oil and gas industry has a stranglehold on the entire state. And that region is one of the most heavily polluted because of all of the petrochemical plants. You know, my parents worked at oil refineries for a collective 80 years. And, all my aunts, uncles, cousins, if they're not at the oil refineries, then they're at a chemical plant down the road. It's one of the only industries in that area that is that will pay enough in order to put 3 kids through college and have enough to retire on. You know, there is an unspoken rule in that area regarding keep your head down, don't rock the boat, don't challenge authority, don't question authority, because essentially the financial benefits outweigh the kind of externalized public health and safety costs. So there's a massive increase in asthma rates in that area. There are cancer clusters. And so, it's pollution issues hit me at the core. And so, whenever I graduated high school, I moved out of the small town. I moved to Dallas, the Dallas area, big eye opener. Went to University of Texas at Arlington, and was a dance teacher there. I danced all my life. Back in '99, we just decided to move to Austin, and Austin was a green mecca, an oasis of sustainability, and a lot of nonprofit do-gooders as well. So, I was slinging fajitas and margaritas in a Mexican restaurant, and I had done that for 5 years. I had worked for 4 years as a server and a bartender at another restaurant. So collective 9 years in the food service industry, and it gave me a lot of insights on how food-based businesses are run and how much waste is created as well. They approached me one day like, hey, we want you to be a manager. And I was like, oh, there's something bigger and better out there for me. So I looked on the back of the Austin Chronicle, and there was a tiny little ad that said, get paid to fight the man.
Ooh.
And I was like, cool.
That's enticing.
Yeah, but I was like, okay, but who's the man? Like,
right.
We weren't raised in a political household. I never witnessed, I'm sure my mom voted, but I never really witnessed the voting process, and we didn't talk politics. These dinner conversations weren't happening regarding, environmental health and civic duty and government accountability. None of those discussions were being had. So it was, a big eye opener whenever I found out that the job that I was going to take was door-to-door campaign organizing for an environmental nonprofit statewide.
Wow. You get your steps in the Texas heat. Yes.
Yeah. 5 hours a day in the Texas heat, just knocking on doors, talking to people, everyday Texans, making sure they understood that, you have a say in this. We need your support. We're a community-funded organization. We had 50,000 members across the state of Texas at one point. And, that's what really gave us the muscle to passed the 2007 computer take back law, and we worked with Dell Technologies and several other equipment manufacturers to make sure that with the passage of that law that taxpayers were no longer responsible for corporate cleanup of these toxic e-waste materials that would normally end up in a landfill or on the side of the road in a dry creek bed somewhere. This stuff is full of lead, mercury, and arsenic, doesn't belong in landfills for sure, doesn't belong in the natural environment, but who's responsible for it? Is it the end of life, it's responsible to the customer, or is it shift to the onus should be on the producer? So we got extended producer take back legislation on the books in Texas, where the manufacturers must provide free and responsible recycling for all Texas residents. We repeated that victory in 2011 when we worked with Panasonic and Thompson, and we got the 2011 Texas television take back law passed, where TV manufacturers would then be responsible, not taxpayers. And so it just kind of bloomed from there. We were kind of on a roll, and we passed 4 recycling ordinances in the city of Austin as well for like curbside composting for the single family homes, apartment recycling and composting, the plastic bag ban or the single-use bag ordinances, the city likes to call it. And there were several others, but yeah, it was a very enlightening journey on how the legislative process works, not only at the state level, but at the local level as well, and what it takes to build the alliances needed in order to present the public outcry necessary to sway decision makers, those who hold the purse as well, and to get these massive companies on board with policy that's good for them because they're recovering their own materials, and also for Texas residents who no longer had to foot the bill for their cleanup. So yeah, after that, I was like, what am I going to do next? So I was just driving home from work one day, and I was sitting at the light, about to turn into my neighborhood. I was in a daze, just la la la. And then something shot through me like a bolt of lightning. It stiffened my spine. I sat straight up and I said, Stacy, you need to start a business. The lawmakers and their aides, the city council members and the aides, the county commissioners, the haulers in the trash recycling and composting industries, the environmental nonprofit heavy hitters across the state. Like, why aren't you the resource hub for zero waste? And so the very next day, I went down to the Travis County Courthouse. I slapped down my $17 and I got my DBA.
Good for
and
you.
So almost 13 years later, here we are. And Dell's one of our clients, and the city of Austin is one of our clients. And we're working with them to help them with waste reduction tactics and educating communities as well. So it's been quite the circular journey.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm curious, as you've gotten this started, what were some of the initial conversations like when you decided you're going to start this business and starting to bring people on board? What were some of those initial conversations as you're trying to find partners and businesses to join with as you got started?
In my business, it was very slow going at the beginning. I mean, I did have to take a couple of part-time jobs because I just didn't have any traction yet. I literally went into this blind. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to run a business. I just thought I would have a job the rest of my life. And, the universe had something else in store for me. So it's funny that you ask it that way. I didn't really do much outreach. They came to me, which was really good.
Yeah.
I didn't know much about marketing either, and how to do that outreach. That was one of my barriers was, okay, I know all these folks in the nonprofit world and the governmental world, but I don't know anybody in the business world. Even in the local Austin area, if I started hyper local in Austin and then I worked my way out, kind of like a drop in the bucket, ripples out, I was still very, very much unconfident in the way that I was going to approach these businesses, what they needed to hear. Do they even know what zero waste is? There was a lot of education that needed to happen first before I could even get the conversations going with those who are decision makers in the organization or the businesses that I was looking to snag as clients. Luckily, I had one client very early on in like 2015 called me just out of the blue, and they're up in St. Louis. And he was like, okay, our CEO just passed down a mandate that our plant needs to be zero waste by 2018. So I was like, okay, that gives us 3 years. And he was like, I'm LEED certified. I know about green building and energy and water. I don't know the first thing about waste and recycling. And I was like, I got you. So I built up my team of zero waste elders who had been in the space for 20, 30, 40 years already. And they were my mentors. We were on paper. I was leading the entire project. Behind the scenes, I was on a huge upward swing of of learning and keeping my mouth shut on on the internal calls, just learning everything that I could, and just adding in where I thought it might be helpful or beneficial or have some kind of value. And at the end of that, my whole world exploded with more clients just kind of dropping in our lap, and putting things out on social media, and starting to just kind of put wave our little flag, in the air, like, hey, we're over here. We can do X, Y, and Z for your company. And so I think, in the southern states, we recycling is barely a concept in these areas.
Yeah.
But you've got some larger states on the West Coast. You've got some more progressive states in, the Northeast. So there's companies that are always looking for doing things better and being more efficient and having more optimization in their operations. And so they were just kind of coming to us. And the only thing that we could really do is tell the story of how we helped them. And get that out there. And granted, social media wasn't really huge back then. I think all we had was Facebook.
Yeah, the Facebook, right?
Yeah.
The Facebook.
So it was the folks who followed me knew what was going on, but we didn't really have. I don't remember really having anything like a professional LinkedIn or anything like that back then. And so
it was a different world. I mean, I think too,
much.
you were positioned really well in Austin. We talked about it. Like, I was born. Or not born, but we moved to Dallas when I was 6, was raised there, met Sean in Austin. And so we kind of indirectly crossed paths. We didn't even know each other. And now we live in Maryland, but we've reconnected here. But some of your work we were witness to when we lived in Austin. And that was really awesome to see that. And now connect it directly with you. But Austin is, for anyone who's listening, is just it's kind of a crunchy city. At least it used to be earlier. It's gotten less so. But, we used to talk about the tree huggers, and you have Hippie Hollow, and, just sort of all the cool vibes of Austin, where people are wanting to recycle and stuff. So you probably were positioned in one of the best areas in the southern states to really start that initiative. Did companies like Dell, were they kind of feeling that burden and they approached you, or was that something that you had to kind of take the reins and go and approach them?
Well, I started working with Dell and right whenever COVID hit, and they had, nobody was showing up to the office. Ergo, there was no waste being generated at the office.
Right.
And so they wanted to keep their employees sharp. They wanted to keep their recycling skills sharp and keep them educated about the zero waste initiatives that Dell was implementing. And so we worked together to do a 4-part educational series online on Zoom, where 300 people every time would show up. I think we did a 4-part series. Yeah, I think I said that, where they showing up from the U.S., Canada, Mexico, all of these employees that were still wanting to remain engaged, but just because they weren't at the office, they really didn't have that. So we were able to work with Dell to kind of keep them engaged, so that when they do go back to the office, they were on their game.
Yeah. Awesome.
That is awesome. So, you've worked with these names like Apple, I know Boston University, and I imagine, getting that going and getting everything started wasn't smooth sailing, right? But tell us about one challenge that really tested you and what you learned as you went through that.
I think the main thing was shifting 2 things. One was I was an activist, and I was on the outside looking in, pointing, shaming these companies. I was in the press. I was running press conferences on the steps of the Capitol because of this legislation we were pushing, and getting that attention, and doing guerrilla protests and all the signs and everything that I we could, as our environmental nonprofit group could do in order to take on a multi-billion-dollar multinational company in our backyard. And we finally got them to the table because of all the ruckus that we caused and all the handwritten letters that we got from Central Texans and Texans all over the state. Whenever we went knocking on their doors in those districts, got letters to the company saying, we need you to take back and support this legislation. In fact, we need you to come to the table and help draft the legislation and help push for it and lobby for it and be there whenever we win. I had that mentality, and then I had to shift into business ownership. Oh, well, how do I do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So in Austin, I had this 10-year reputation of being a troublemaker. And then I all of a sudden had to shift gears and be the business owner that was leader in the corporate boardrooms, that kind of thing. And so that shift for me was difficult because in the nonprofit setting, believe me, not a lucrative career at all. It's really, of course, you get paid a livable wage, but it's really you're there because of the passion that you have and what you want to see happen for the Texans and the taxpayers that are being affected. So making that shift, the second thing was the money part, right? So getting paid what you get paid at a nonprofit is not what you get paid or what you can charge whenever you're a business owner to a
Absolutely.
multi-billion-dollar multinational company. And so
Yes.
making that shift, activist to business owner, and then finding my worth of how much I could charge for my services that I had hard fought for my knowledge and my expertise in the field, to be able to present that as something that a corporation would want, a client would want to incorporate into their planning and strategies, as well as my expertise. And how do I market that? Knowing that I could charge over $100 an hour blew my mind. I was just like, is this, this is really something that I can do? And all the other consultants that I talked to in my niche, in the zero waste world were like, absolutely double it, in fact. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know
And
about that.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're like, lawyers do it all the time. Why? Because they had the expertise. And, we're looking at compliance issues up and down, the board, from local government to state government, and, even federal government, whenever you're looking at the Green New Deal and things like that, where it could possibly happen, where all states would be affected. Compliance can be very costly if you're not doing it right. So the people that have knowledge on compliance are the ones that charge the big bucks. And I was like, I can do that.
Yeah. Who
Yeah.
would have known that, you growing up in that oil and gas area where there was a lot of pollutants, who knew that you would grow up to actually be like combating those things. So that's a really cool kind of full circle piece right there. And yeah, we talk a lot about like pricing ourselves. That's really hard. There's not anything to really gauge against. You're on a mission. You're for profit or nonprofit. For profit. Yeah. And so you're consulting with these businesses on how to reduce their waste. Pricing yourself has got to be a challenge for sure.
Yeah. But when we tell them that a 1% reduction in waste equals a 4 to 6% reduction in waste costs, it's music to their ears. And they're like, show me how to do that.
Yes.
Because they have to show their C-suite executives that they are doing everything possible to implement the programs, come under budget, and be as efficient as possible.
Absolutely.
As you're working with these businesses, do they have a goal in mind that they're looking for when they do this waste, or is it something more like you're going to them and showing them what they could save by doing this and how much better it is for the environment?
Both. It depends on where we're starting. So one of our services is a waste audit, where we get up to our elbows for 12 hours in somebody else's trash and we sort the waste. We sort the
Wow.
recycling, all the food waste, the liquids, the electronics that are coming out of the building. And we figure out, well, what is the waste stream comprised of? And what are the percentages of those streams of waste? And so we look at all the data and we get that baseline measurement for the company and say, okay, this is where you're at. This is where we want to go. Here's how
Yeah.
we're going to get there. And so we do a full building assessment. We do a engaging employee training with games and buzzers and true false pop quizzes, all of that, just to test their recycling knowledge and make sure that they
Yeah.
have fun with it. I mean, we're talking trash here. A lot of people don't
Yeah.
see it. It's not very sexy. I mean, I
Well,
think it is, but
Yeah.
I'm a waste nerd anyway. So, but that's one piece of it is doing that waste audit and getting the
Mhm.
building assessment and doing the education piece. And now if they really want to take it to that 90%, because 90% waste diversion from landfills and incinerators or more is the global definition of zero waste. So we want businesses to reduce their waste by 90% and get to that 90% goal. But we have to figure out how to do that. And we start with that waste audit and then we move from there. And, if they are in a position to go for the true zero waste facility certification, which is authorized under the U.S. Green Building Council. So it's like LEED for energy and water and green building, but it's the sister program that only focuses on waste reduction, what's coming into the business through the purchasing department, how it's being used throughout the entire operation, and then what's going out the back into the dumpsters. That's what we look at. And we try to find efficiencies, optimizations, as well as waste reduction avenues also. So, that true certification, I think less than 600 properties around the world have the true certification.
okay.
And it's
Wow.
very prestigious. It's
Yeah.
pretty hard to
Wow.
get. So we lead the
Yeah.
client through the true zero waste facility certification process, help them navigate that so that they can obtain that certification. And a lot
Yeah.
of companies that are already LEED certified with scope 3, coming out, scope 3 is really talking about more reporting to
Mhm.
the government, and it starts to incorporate more waste strategies, waste reduction strategies for buildings that have mainly been focused just on energy, water, and green building. Now they have to focus on the waste reduction piece of it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. So the name of the show is Better Together, and we do that for a reason. So who or what, I guess, in your journey has made you feel like you weren't doing this alone? Like I'm just imagining you and your team picking through dumpsters to try to do these like trash audits and like how like we do digital audits as a company, but we're digging through people's like Facebook pages, which is way more
Data.
sexier than digging through trash.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
what? Like how do you stay motivated? Like how does this, like who helps you? Who's inspired you? Who's better together?
my husband, he's my executive vice president. So
I love
he's
that.
not only our VP, but my VIP. And we work these projects together. He's been part of our team for quite a while now. And he does a lot of the logistics and planning. He's our tech support. He runs our website. He
Oh,
does
that's
all
great.
sorts of stuff. But he's really the one that makes sure that the messaging sounds right, and
Yeah.
that the email timing is going out right. And then he's there with me on site digging through trash and helping us weigh up all
Wow.
those samples and
Yeah.
tracking everything and keeping everything straight. He's leading the project. So yeah, my husband John is really the person who's I can rely on, that can be by my side for all of these projects, no matter where we're
Yeah.
at. St. Louis, California, North Carolina, we got clients everywhere, and there he
Yeah.
is,
You
right
could
next
take
to me on the plane.
your best friend and your best partner.
That's
And
right.
yeah, there's something about working with your spouse. It's just,
Hmm.
it's different. It really is quite different. Do you have other people on your team as well? Or is it mostly just you and your husband doing these audits, traveling to these locations, helping people get through certifications? Sounds like a lot.
It is a lot, but it's the two of us. We're the core team, but any project that we have, we build up a team of subcontractors around us. And
Okay.
so if
Okay.
there's something that the client needs that's not in our wheelhouse, we'll find and vet the proper subcontractor. And then, we will just incorporate their fees into um, the budget,
Into it.
and we'll pay them through us. So it's, once that project is done, then we just dissolve the partnership and we can build
Mhm.
up around another client and maybe bring in a couple of different subcontractors who can service that particular client's needs better than the previous one. So we just keep it very fluid, low overhead. We work from home. This is my home office back
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
Um,
We do
so
that
it's
too.
yeah.
I mean, obviously green screen, but
Got your kitchen back there.
yes, we have a kitchen, doors closing. We'll get all that out hopefully. But yeah, I mean, it is a way to keep costs down. We've managed to keep our clients' costs down also because we work from home. So it's really smart move for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah. So shifting gears just a little bit, you've shaped policies around like, with major companies, and we're curious, like, what's next for zero waste strategies? Like, where do you hope to make an impact next? And kind of a follow-up question is, we've talked a lot about big companies. How can small companies make a change in their waste and how they're handling things?
Well, I'm so glad you asked because I have 2 online courses for those specific demographics. So our first course is what we have online right now is the Cash for Trash Zero Waste Business Academy. And that is for small and mid-sized businesses that either can't afford a sustainability full-time or part-time worker, or who can't afford to bring someone like me as a consultant on site. So this is online strategies that will help them launch their zero waste programs almost immediately, start to realize that ROI that they invested in our online program almost immediately. It expands their knowledge. It expands even their approach to viewing waste and materials. Even we don't call them waste anymore. It's more like material discards because they're extremely valuable and they shouldn't be going to being buried in a
Right.
landfill or
Hmm.
burned off in an
Yeah.
incinerator. So we really go through the basics. We talk about food waste, how to engage and educate your employees with those fun games that I was talking about. Lots of resources online as far as checklists and calendars and tracking spreadsheets and all kinds of stuff so that they can get straight to it and implement what we're talking about in our video modules and on the every other week phone calls that we do as a group coaching calls as well. The second one where we're going to go in the future is, and I'm developing this now, is the sustainability startups. So this is for sustainability professionals or
Hmm.
graduates who want to kick down the door of environmental consulting. And I take
Awesome.
my almost 13 years of business ownership and experience and I package it up into the same kind of strategy with those video modules, with being able to give them additional resources, the checklists, the spreadsheets, everything that they'll need. How do you start a business account, a business savings
Yeah.
account?
Yeah.
How do you go get your DBA? What is the difference between a DBA and an LLC and an S corp? Right. So all these
Yeah.
things that I've had to learn the hard way.
Hmm.
I am fast tracking people to get to where I'm at um, in very, very much shorter amount of time than it
Yeah.
Yeah.
took me. So, having that support is really critical. And I did have some mentors, but as a neurodivergent person, I had to do things my own way. And I could not, I just couldn't do things the way that people maybe wanted me to or asked me to. I had to do things my way. So I always had to find my own way throughout life and what works for me. That's what my business has really been based on is
Yeah.
the strategies and programs that work for me and um, it can work for other people too because I've really dug down deep into the weeds of how to get this thing going and starting up from the grassroots essentially and
Yeah.
the bootstraps that everybody talks about. That was me. So
I
Yeah.
feel like you
I
could
didn't
take
have
that
guru
initial,
backing.
yeah, I feel like you take that initial job that you applied for of want to stand up to the man. You can start that all over again with all these people that you're, trying to bring into your program.
Right. But my
Yeah.
main thing is that it's really geared to women. And so women
Okay.
in waste is a huge gap right now. The waste industry has been around for 120 years. It's been male dominated for over a century and having women with a collaborative spirit that most women are known to have is really what I want to foster in the waste industry with that kind of outlook on the future of zero waste consulting and how can we work together as as women with
Hmm.
female clients and help push female founders of their own businesses. That's really my goal, and to give them the structure needed in order to pursue that career dream of being free, making your own schedule, choosing the clients you want to work
Hmm.
with, freeing up time to be with your family and your kids, all of that, and making the money that you're worth. That's
Yeah.
really the key. A lot of people, especially women, are told that, we're not worth much in society. So when people understand that, you have a bigger purpose than, just being a wife and a mother, that you can support your family, you can bring home the bacon, baby. That's really
Yeah.
what I want to
Yeah.
empower women around this, and people who are already in the sustainability field, who already have a passion for this. They're
Yes.
primed and ready to go, but they're tired of the corporate grind and
Yes.
the demands at 11 o'clock at night, and
Mm.
after the kids have gone down already. So it's really more about freeing up that feminine energy to bring that to the entire waste industry and make it far more collaborative, and
Hmm.
to implement the zero waste and circular economy strategies that are so critically needed right now if we're going to have any type of habitable planet in the future.
Yeah, exactly. I was on your website this past week, looking at all the
Thanks.
courses and resources that you have. You really are, you're not just trying to make a difference just as you alone, you're trying to almost create change makers
Hmm.
as well,
Mhm.
which is really awesome because you're pouring into more people to hopefully inspire them to be able to make those changes in their business, or just even being aware of this. I think so much just from a technology standpoint. I know you deal with a lot of different kinds of waste, but I mean, think about how many computers and laptops and mice, I don't know,
Nieces.
the Mises, how many, or AirPods or microphone. I mean, like, just from your personal use, like, if you can just think about, like, I mean, we have two laptops in the other room that have been broken for years, and I just don't know what to do with them. And so, even from that aspect, and you take every single person in the United States, that's just a small chunk of environmental waste that, you have parts and pieces that are going into our
Mhm.
landfills that really should not be. So I love that what you're doing and how you're creating change around it. I know we talked briefly before the phone call, but it's funny, Sean, you're wearing your Longhorn shirt today.
I am.
I just noticed that. But yeah, go Longhorns. But yeah, I mean, living in Austin, Sean working for Dell for a couple years, he knew about your program that you had started. And it's really neat to see how that's come full circle, how you're inspiring others to join in, and not only inspiring, but training as well. So if you're listening and you're interested in any sort of recycling, getting down to zero waste, interested in what Stacy's doing, go to her website. She really has like a plethora of information and resources for you. So last question. So what's one piece of advice you'd want our listeners to walk away with today?
Hmm. That they hold the key, because they're the consumers. The
Hmm.
consumers always vote with their dollar. And when you can send the message to companies that they need to be cleaner and greener and have less wasteful operations, then you will spend your dollars with them. But until then, you'll withhold them and shop their competitors who are doing it better. And so I think it's incumbent upon us as consumers to do our research. We can be very savvy shoppers, but we got to put the time and effort into looking at sustainability reports on these companies' websites. We have to be able to, check them out on social media to see if they've been called out or exposed by media on any issues. It could be labor issues like child labor. It could be deforestation issues. Really, really look at what they're doing, and see if there's any attempts at greenwashing, which is a company saying one thing about the environment and then
Hmm.
doing a complete different thing that harms the environment. And
Yes.
that greenwashing can be the wool over a consumer's eyes,
Mhm.
and that's what they bank on a lot of the times. And so it's important to vote with that dollar, especially since the holidays are coming up. I know a lot of people are tightening their belts and putting their wallet back into their pocket a little bit more. And so if we are going to spend money, then it needs to be with the right companies who care about the future of this planet planet and who not only just stating it on paper, they're showing it in their metrics and in their data analytics and in their social media, and, who's the companies who are investing with them, the shareholders, and who's aligning with them, and are those folks aligned with your core values as a consumer? If not, again, shop their competitors or write to them, send them an email, call customer service, tweet them, whatever, just as long as they get the message, because that's handwrite a letter. That's what we did with Dell. Remember, we got over 10,000 letters to Dell, handwritten letters to get them to come to the table. So it's really important that every voice does count, every dollar counts. That's what they really listen to. So just something to take with you into the holiday season as you're shopping for your family, and picking products that have a little bit more longevity and can be passed down to other generations. It's something to think about.
Awesome. Well, Stacy, thank you so much. This has been a great interview. One last question. How can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about, sustainability and maybe even hiring you for some of the work that you do?
Yeah, so our website is zerowaste.org. It's the number zero, the digit zero, waste.org. And you can reach us by phone as well, 512-693-7677. And we're also on all the main socials under @ZeroWasteStrategies. So you can ping us there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking with us, Stacy. This has been a really great conversation. It's good to talk to someone back from our hometown in Austin. So yeah, thank you so much. And we're looking forward to connecting with you and seeing what you do next. So
yeah,
thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Of course.
Thanks.
Of course. Thanks.